Welcome to the Preserving Family Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to equip you to gain insight, information, and inspiration to help you protect, teach, and guide your family during these turbulent times. Our goal is to provide tools and resources to help you strengthen and preserve your own marriages and families. Now here are your hosts, Dr. Mark and Janie Ogletree.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So glad you're here with me running solo today on Preserving Families. You know, for those of you that are listening that may not know, we base our podcast on a statement from President Spencer W. Kimball, who said that the time would come when only those who believe deeply and actively in the family would be able to preserve their families in the midst of the gathering evil around us. This podcast is dedicated to providing tools and helps and doctrines and principles that will help strengthen and fortify families. And we do hope that if you like what you're listening to, that you'll share it with those you love and care about so that they can benefit and be blessed by what we're talking about. Well, today's episode is one that I've wanted to do for a long time. You may remember a few weeks ago, maybe it was even a couple of months ago, we talked about parents who stand in the way of their children getting married, parents who oppose their children getting married. And we're not talking about children who were marrying someone that was questionable or that would wreak havoc on their life. We're talking about when a daughter or son meets an outstanding person, but for whatever reason, the parent gets in the way of that and causes the couple to break up or whatever. Well, this today is a different topic. Our topic is based on parents who come up and talk to us on occasion and ask if we could do, or if we would consider doing a podcast on helping their children find the right person to marry. So what happens if you have a child that chooses to get serious with someone? They begin the process of engagement, yet the person that they are with causes you as a parent some concern. And by the way, some of these concerns are difficult to share, right? Because it may not be anything outward. It's not like you're noticing that they're a drug addict or a gang member or something like that. It's just that maybe you notice that the person just isn't quite what you thought your child would marry. Now, maybe all of us, of course, all of us hope that our children will marry and marry well. But what if there are some little personality flaws or tendencies or things that you notice that are very different than how you raised your child that could cause some concern? Or maybe there's even some fundamental flaws, like you may notice that when it comes to their commitment level to the gospel of Jesus Christ, or maybe their views on morality or honesty or education, or any of those fundamental areas. Maybe some of those things come into question. And so we want to be able to have meaningful conversations with our children. We want to try to steer them the right way. We also want to be really careful, right? I understand that this could be a minefield and we've got to take delicate steps, but I personally know parents out there who have chosen to be completely silent when it has come to who their children marry. And then their children have taken some missteps in that decision, and the parents were just quiet about it and never said a word, and the parents could have prevented some serious heartache. Other times, our children just need maybe some gentle and soft guidance and direction, and they're looking to us to provide that. So let me see if I can express the problem a little bit and develop that. But many young adults today they're incredibly good at choosing someone to date, but maybe not great all the time at choosing someone to marry. So I think a great question is what if the traits that make someone exciting at age 22 don't really sustain a marriage at age 42? In fact, I can ask my BYU students, what are the top 3 traits that you're looking for in a spouse? And they can respond with, well, attractive, fun, nice, spiritual. And then I can ask them, well, of those traits, which one is really going to matter 25 years from now? Because we all know that a lot of the traits that we were focused on at age 22 don't really seem super relevant at age 52 or 62 or 72, that's for sure. So I think a lot of our young single adults and college students are dating person A while hoping to marry person B. For example, maybe they're optimized for attraction and social connection, but not really optimized to be looking at long-term compatibility. Maybe we're selecting for short-term excitement in a decision that actually has long-term consequences. We know that students, I say students, but I'm thinking of my students right now, but college-age students, young single adults, certainly would prioritize physical attraction, which we get that. We're not faulting that at all. Fun, chemistry, charisma, social status, but they may be overlooking things like emotional maturity or work ethic or the ability to resolve problems. Now, I remember still visiting with a young married couple. They'd been married just for a few months, quite a few years ago. And when I was visiting just with this new wife, this new bride, one of the things she told me that I remember, she said, I just had no idea how lazy my husband was going to be. I didn't know that he was going to watch TV all day, is what she said. Well, yeah, so here she was, probably attracted to some of those outer qualities. The priorities are the qualities that a lot of us prioritize early on in the attraction phase, but not really looking down the road at some of the traits that really, really mattered. And I promise everyone out there, you don't want to marry someone who's really lazy. That's going to cause all kinds of problems in your marriage, and it did in that one for sure. So here's some data from the National Marriage Project. Shared values, commitment, and communication, so shared values, shared commitment, and shared communication are the strongest predictors of marital satisfaction, not necessarily initial chemistry. And then studies influenced by John Gottman, one of the great marriage researchers in our country, that research says that 69% of marital conflict is perpetual, meaning you don't ever really solve it, you just manage it. So the person matters a lot more than those problems. And so here are some traits. This is what I would call, as we look at some of the cardinal traits in marriage, and once again, we're directing this podcast episode certainly to parents who are in their 40s and 50s and 60s, but also to young single adults and college students who are listening at what I would call the cardinal traits in marriage. Here's just some questions. And by the way, I am so happy to share this with any of you. If you email me at preservingfamiliespodcast@gmail.com. I will send you whatever I have. There'll be a couple things in this episode that will come up that you may want a copy of. But here's some great questions. It's not just do I love them, but are they built for marriage? Am I built for marriage? I think that's another great perspective that we need to have is instead of having a shopping list that has all the traits that we hope our partner has one day, that shopping list can also be for ourselves, right? As we evaluate ourselves. Can they? And so when I say can they, I think we all could say, Lord, is it I? Can I resolve conflict? What do my priorities look like, or theirs? What kind of parent do you think they'll be? I think that's such a crucial one. I remember being with Janie early on in our relationship, long before we even got engaged, and I just had this incredible sense that she was going to be an awesome mom, and she was, and still is today. And that mattered to me so much because I wanted to have a good, strong family, and I knew that couldn't happen unless you had a strong mom and dad. How do they handle stress and crisis? That's a big deal. How strong is their faith? That's a big deal. I didn't understand what a big deal that was until we started to have challenging things happen in our lives and significant trials. And I started to learn that my wife was hopeful and faithful and optimistic and believing and had great trust in the Lord. Here I was, a returned missionary, but I recognized that her trust was a lot stronger than mine. What kind of devoted church member will they be? Are they consecrated? Does the gospel of Jesus Christ really mean something to them? And are they all in? I mean, that's an important one for us and our family for sure. What about their work ethic, their earning potential? How about these traits? How do they treat people, and especially people who can't do anything for them? think that's such a great question. Are they emotionally steady or emotionally volatile? And by the way, once again, I'm going to say it one more time, but as I'm reading these, pointing them towards another person, be thinking, Lord, is it I? Do they take responsibility or do they blame other people for their problems? Are they humble enough to apologize? Can they forgive or do they hold grudges? Are they kind when they don't necessarily get their way? Are they teachable or are they defensive? Do they listen or do they just wait to talk? Boy, a good listener is crucial in a marriage relationship. Are they generous or more self-centered? That's a huge one, because I'll tell you right now that another significant problem that every marriage has to battle is selfishness to some degree, and it's on a spectrum. And the lower that becomes, or in other words, the more insignificant that becomes, the more healthy our marriage will be. But being married to a selfish person is tough. And when I'm involved in my counseling practice and listen to some of the stories that spouses are going through, so often it just boils down to, wow, that person is being extremely selfish. Are they honest, even when it's hard to be honest? Are they dependable? Do they follow through on commitments? Don't you want to be married to someone who, when they say something is going to happen or promise to do something, they do it? Are they patient? Are they resilient when life is hard? That's another important one for me. Are they resilient when life is hard? I remember I was so proud of this moment, but when one of our daughters was being married, it was I guess it was the wedding breakfast. But the mother of the groom, who we love, stood up and she presented our daughter with a picture. And it just happened to be one of my favorite pieces of artwork in the church. But it's a pioneer woman with her kind of bonnet behind her head, tied around the neck, with her dress on. And she is facing the wind. The handcart's like behind her, and her hair's blowing in the wind, and she's just erect, standing straight up, facing that wind. And my daughter's mother-in-law said, this picture just reminds us of you because you are so tough and so resilient. And once again, that was a proud moment for me because that daughter is tough and resilient. And I love that idea, that concept of being married to someone who doesn't curl up in a ball when life gets hard or doesn't run away or run the other direction. They face life head on. Do they handle disappointment well? How do they handle it when bad things happen? How do they bounce back from a significant setback, let's say? Are they emotionally safe? Are they respectful in disagreements, or do they lose their cool and just go off? Do they build up others or tear them down? Are they more concerned about being right or being united? Can they make sacrifices for the other person? This is a big one. I love what Victor L. Brown said years ago, that only if you sacrifice for a cause will you love it. How do you love? You sacrifice. Well, what if they don't sacrifice? Or what if they've never really sacrificed for anything or anyone? Can they learn that skill? Do they seek peace or do they escalate conflict or contention? Do they cause contention? That's a hard marriage partner to be with, someone who causes contention and stirs the pot. Are they willing to change and grow and improve? Are they affectionate? Are they warm? Do they show appreciation? Are they controlling or collaborative? Do they bring calmness or chaos into a relationship? The question isn't just, do I love them? The question is do they have the traits that make love last? Or as Janie likes to say, and I think it's so true, she'll say sometimes it takes a lot more than just love to make a marriage work. And I love that. That statement has come in so handy over the years as we've visited with our own children, as sometimes some of them have been in relationships before they got married where we saw a few red flags, and even though they loved each other, you knew that it was going to be tough if they were together, because it takes a lot more than just love sometimes to make a marriage work. Do they put God first in their lives? And is there evidence of that? Do they love the gospel of Jesus Christ? Are they striving to improve? Do they keep covenants? Are they service-oriented? Do they care about other people? Because I promise you, if you marry someone who actually cares about other people, then you are going to have a pretty awesome marriage, because that means they're going to care about you and your children. They're going to make you one of the first priorities in their life, and they're going to serve you throughout their lives. Do they honor commitments? Do they live with integrity? And I love this idea that don't just marry someone you love, marry someone that you can build a life with. Or in other words, back to that idea that it's not just about love. That's great that you're in love, but once again, it takes a lot more than love to build a marriage. How about these questions? Would I want my children to become like them? Would I trust them with my whole life? A key question right here is, does this person make me better? And do they bring peace and happiness into my life? Are they built for a lifelong partnership? And how about this idea that chemistry may start a relationship, but character sustains marriage? So yes, one thing to have chemistry, and I think that's crucial, but character is even more important. So now let me speak for a minute about common differences in couples, because it doesn't matter. I mean, whoever we or our children decide to marry, of course you're going to have differences. And sometimes those differences are critical, they're non-negotiable, but other times the differences are just fine. That a marriage can work with differences like some of the ones I'm about to mention. In fact, a marriage can even thrive with some of these differences. Not every difference has to be a deal breaker. So here are some common differences. And what I mean by that is, look, these are the differences that if they're present, guess what? You can still have a happy, awesome marriage. So don't panic when you recognize that what you like to do for entertainment, or the way that you express love, or your ideas of dressing up and going out on the town, or where to travel, don't worry about if those ideas are just completely different, because it's okay. You'll learn a lot from each other. I grew up in a family where we spent a lot of time camping and a lot of time on boats. My wife grew up in a family that didn't do that too much. Guess what? In our family, we spent a lot of time with Janie and our kids camping and being on boats. And now our children all do the same thing. But that wasn't something that was part of Janie's repertoire. Janie loves to travel. I'm not a traveler. I don't like traveling. I'd rather hang out at my house any day. But she loves it, and so I've had to learn how to become a traveler of sorts because she likes to do it. She has more of an adventurous spirit than I do. All right, so here are some of those differences. I'm going to list 16. So here we go. Number 1, communication styles. The way that you communicate could be really different. Expect that for sure, but it's okay, right? Number 2, of course, family background and family traditions. I think of my own children and who they married. And yes, every one of them comes from a different background with different traditions, different ways of doing things. It's okay. We can make it work, right? Of course, personality types. Number 3, our personality types are going to be different. Number 4, the way that we express love is going to be different. It's very rare that you would marry someone that would express love the exact same way that you like to express it. Conflict resolution styles. The way that we resolve conflict is probably going to be different. And once again, that's okay. We just need to understand what the difference is and then work with it. Spiritual practices. I think this is one of the most shocking differences that couples experience early on in their marriage. But here you marry someone who's active and faithful in the church. You think you know them pretty well. And then once you're married, you recognize, oh, the way that we practice our faith is just really different. It's not even similar. Number 7, the way that we use our time, hobbies. I still remember we had been married for probably a month. And one of the things that my wife liked to do, because her family did this at the end of the day, is they sat around and they watched at least maybe one TV show, right? They maybe watched one TV show. And I remember watching this TV show with my wife, and then about right in the middle of it saying, hey, would you care if I just left for a little while and went and hit some golf balls? And she said, no, go ahead. And she loved that because I wasn't bothering her during the show she was watching, and I loved it because I just needed to get outside. But the way that we used our time was really different. We kind of learned about that. Social activities. What kind of social activities we engage in could be really different. Travel preferences, like I told you. I think the family that I grew up in took one vacation my entire life. We traveled from Houston, Texas to Orlando, Florida to go to Disney World and back, and that was it. Well, my wife's family did a little bit more of that. And then in our own family, it wasn't unusual to sometimes do 2 or 3 vacations a year, right? Every Christmas, every summer, sometime in between. A lot of times that was driving from Texas to Utah, but that's okay. We did a lot of fun things. Our taste in music could be really different. Of course, our taste in movies. I've joked on this podcast before that my wife and I probably will never watch a movie together. It's really rare that we do because we're so interested in different things, right? And it's okay. Still totally happily married, but my wife is never going to watch Dumb and Dumber, and I'm probably not going to watch Gone with the Wind, right? Food preferences, what we love for food could be different. Recreation hobbies could be different. Entertainment styles, that's number 14. What we like to do for entertainment could be different. Our clothing choices, our dress and appearance could be different. And then lifestyle preferences. By the way, on clothing choices, that was a really fun one for us because I was super casual in the way that I dressed. And I really just didn't care that much. And to my wife, that was really important. She wanted me to look really good. And so here she was telling me, get rid of the sweatpants and the cowboy boots together. That's not going to work for me. And the baseball hat on backwards. Okay, you're going to have to, let's spice it up here a little bit. But here's the point. Oh, and then number 16 was lifestyle preferences. I can't remember if I shared that with you or not. Just the way that we choose to live our lives could be a little bit different. Meaning some people, I remember one time going over to a friend's house years ago. They had invited us over for like a 4th of July or Memorial Day kind of thing. And I remember on that day, our family had cleaned the garage, did all the yard work, weeded the flower bed, took a load of stuff to the dump, painted a room. And we were meeting this family like at 4:00 in the afternoon. And I went over to his house and there he was sitting by his pool reading a book. And I was like, hey, that's cool. How long have you been reading the book today? And he said, yeah, probably most of the day today. I've just been reading this book. And I just thought, wow, we live our lives really different. Here I am. We're running around like chickens with our heads cut off, bouncing off the walls, trying to get 500 things done. And you're sitting here relaxing on a holiday. Oh, yeah, I think that's what you're supposed to do. Great idea. Anyway, these are common differences. And what does it mean? It means with these type of differences, you're going to be okay. You marry someone that has some of these differences, you can work on them and you can grow together and you can form a strong bond and a strong team and it's going to work. None of these are deal breakers, or at least they don't have to be. But now the essence of the podcast today, the cardinal traits of marriage. These are the core character traits. And maybe these traits would kind of signal who the person is in this first category. These are the ones that could be deal breakers if you're not aligned, if you don't have alignment on some of these things. What we want to do is teach our children to marry someone who, number one, is emotionally mature. They can handle stress, they can handle conflict, they can receive feedback without chaos or avoidance, they can handle difficult things, they have perspective and wisdom. And I love that emotional maturity is something that even young LDS people can have because missions help us with that quite a bit. Number 2, integrity and honesty. You want to be married to someone who's truthful, consistent, trustworthy in every setting, someone that you can trust. It's a big deal. If you don't have that, that's going to be a hard marriage. Number 3, I think humility and teachability are really important. You want to marry someone who's humble, who's meek, who's teachable, who could admit that they're wrong, who wants to improve, who's willing to admit mistakes, right? And then number 4, kindness and compassion. Someone who treats others with respect, empathy, dignity. They care more about others than they care about themselves. The next segment of cardinal traits would be kind of their worldview. And number 5 would be spiritual and religious alignment. I guess you could put a subcategory here. These are the things that people believe. So number 5, spiritual and religious alignment. This is when they have a shared faith orientation, a compatible spiritual direction. You're on the same page. You feel like you're going the same direction. Number 6, a moral and ethical framework. So things like honesty, sexuality, integrity, right and wrong alignment, or alignment with standards and values can be really crucial. And there's a huge variation now, even in the church. The way that we view modesty could be really different. The way we view chastity could be really different. Number 7, just life philosophy. This could be politics and society, general worldview compatibility, Maybe your opinions are not identical, but they're certainly in harmony. We live in a world today that there has to be political alignment in a marriage. That would be just as tough as not having spiritual alignment in my mind. The world is so polarized politically today, that'd be a tough one. All right, cardinal traits, family and relationship structure is kind of my next heading. So number 8 would be their view on marriage roles, on gender roles, expectations of partnership, leadership, contribution. Will a wife work? Will a husband work? All those kinds of things. I will always think of this story when I consider the idea of gender roles in marriage. And I always tell my students, guys, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to inflict upon you my values. You get to believe however you want to believe. But what I'm telling you right now is that you really need to marry someone, though, where you align on gender roles. And so this student came up to me after class one day and told me that he was now engaged, and I was excited for him. And then he said, "Could I come and ask you a question, though? Something's kind of bothering me." And I said, "Sure." And he came into my office and asked me a question. And the question was, hey, my fiance wants to go to medical school and become a doctor. I think that's great. But he said, "Do you think that will work?" And I said, "Well, that's between you and her. I don't really know if that would work, but it just kind of depends on how do you feel about it." And we talked about it, and he seemed to think that he could make that work. But literally about a year later, I saw him at a restaurant, and we were talking for a few minutes, and I said, "Hey, how's married life?" Because I knew that by that point he would have been married for a little while. He said, "Actually, we're divorced." And when he said we're divorced, I knew what that meant. I knew that meant they could have only been married for a matter of months. I said, "What happened?" And he said, "Remember that conversation we had with gender roles?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, I actually couldn't make that work. I thought I could, and I couldn't. Now, I'm sure there's more to that story, but that's how significant gender role alignment could be. Number 9, parenting philosophy. A lot of times when we're a young single adult or college student and we're engaged to be married or even thinking seriously about marriage, how we'll raise our future children is something that rarely comes up. But it needs to, because we may find out that our beliefs about raising children could be really, really different, right? Like 180 degrees different. And so we want to talk about our parenting philosophy and see if we can get some alignment there. Number 10, extended family and in-law boundaries. All right, healthy independence, respect for family systems. So that's a big one is how do we view that? Or what if you have a feeling that you really need to be independent from in-laws and parents? Of course, you want to see them and be involved, but you want to have some space there, but you're married to someone who wants to be involved with in-laws or parents every day. I mean, how's that going to work, right? Number 11, work ethic and discipline. Yep, you want to marry someone that's self-motivated, responsible, and consistent. But work ethic and discipline, boy, I'm learning that those are the keys to success in life. What if you do marry someone who's not ambitious? What if you do marry someone that doesn't really try that hard at whatever they're asked to do, or they're just not a hard worker? Because frankly, everyone, the hard workers in this world are the people who make the world go round, right? Number 12, financial responsibility. Let's talk about that for a minute. Spending habits, saving, philosophy of going into debt, stewardship over our resources. How does that work, right? And you know what? We're going to have really different approaches to our financial lives because of the way that we were brought up, the way that we were raised, but also the experiences that we've had in life, and our personality contributes to that a little bit too. I always tell people that I grew up in a home where our father was very frugal and didn't spend money, held on to it. And so what do I want to do in our life when we have extra money? Hey, let's go do something fun. Let's go spend it and do something fun. My wife grew up in a home where her father was in commercial real estate, and sometimes they had a lot of money, and sometimes they had no money. What does she want to do when we have money? Save it. In fact, I just told her about some money that was coming in that would be extra money. I go, "Honey, what do you want to do with that?" And I'm thinking of something fun, and she's like, "We should pay off this debt." All right, that's a good idea, but I thought we were going to, go down a water slide or something, right? Number 13, education and career orientation. I know for a fact that when my wife married me, that there is no possible way that she knew that for the first 15 years of our marriage, I was going to be in school. I think if I would have told her that up front, she would have said, that's a deal breaker for me. But I so valued education, and I knew that education was going to unlock some doors and provide opportunities for us. And so, yeah, a couple master's degrees and a doctorate degree later, 15 years is what it was until I was no longer in school. Number 14, health and self-management, just diet, exercise, avoiding addictions, self-care. You definitely want to marry someone who I think wants to take care of themselves, take care of their bodies, and be healthy. Number 15 is communication skills, the ability to talk, to listen, to process hard topics, to have hard and difficult conversations, but to have those in a Christ-like way. Number 16, conflict resolution style. Can they resolve conflict, or do they avoid conflict? Do they avoid hard conversations? Do they have the ability to repair and forgive and move on? Number 17, emotional safety and security. I think that's a great one. Do you feel safe with this person emotionally? Can you share with them anything? I love that. I love when my wife tells me I can tell you anything, and I love that she can do that. Number 18, kindness in relationship behavior. So now what are we talking about? Daily patterns of love, service, generosity, and affection. That may be one of the most important cardinal traits in a potential marriage partner. We want to teach our children to be looking for someone with those attributes. Number 19, of course, physical attraction. We want our young people to be physically attracted to the person that they're going to marry. And then number 20, and this one is just as important in my mind, but personality and emotional attraction. Or in other words, you want to be attracted to their personality as well. And you want to be compatible. You want to have humor, friendship, connection. I'll tell everyone just a really brief story, but I'll never forget my closing interview with my mission president. It was such a meaningful meeting with him. It meant so much to me to have that meeting and to learn from him that one last time. But I remember my mission president said, I want you to tell me about two of your favorite companions. And I told him who they were. And then he asked a question. He said, why? Why were they your favorite? And I go, well, and the first thing I thought of is I said, well, we worked really hard together. I mean, we worked so hard together. But I said, but number two was just as important to me. But I said, we probably laughed hysterically all day long. We just laughed all the time. And my mission president stopped me and he got really serious for a minute. He goes, I want you to remember that when you find someone to marry. Make sure that you marry someone that you can work really hard with and you work as a team, but also that you can laugh and have fun together. That was the greatest counsel from my mission president that has blessed me for the rest of my life with my wife. Now, because I feel that this topic is so important, what is it? Coaching, teaching, training, helping, directing our young single adults and college students towards a marriage partner, to be able to identify with them great, awesome traits, but also if we see some things that we're a little bit nervous about, we want to be able to tell them about that. So I took those 20 questions that I just threw at you on what I would call kind of the essentials. These are the essential cardinal traits of a marriage partner. Fed them into a little AI and came up with an assessment. It's a 20-question measure that helps to identify the compatibility, the potential, the character, the worldviews, the standards, the relationship strength, the boundaries, the life functioning systems, the relational capacity, the attraction, and the bonding capacity of a partner. And once again, if you email me at preservingfamiliespodcast@gmail.com, I will send you that assessment. And I think that you'll enjoy it. Maybe we can head to the finish line today with some research and reality. According to the research done by John Gottman and others who have followed in his footsteps, contempt, and I'm going to define that for a minute, disapproval, scorn, dislike, disrespect, hatred, derision, or as one of my graduate school professors taught us, that contempt is when criticism now has turned nasty. But contempt is the number one predictor of a divorce. We may say it this way in an LDS circle, that where there's a lot of contention in a relationship and meanness and disrespect, then there's a really good chance of divorce. But here's something that's also really cool, that kindness, once again, is the most predictive trait of lasting marriages. In fact, the strongest predictor of marital stability in John Gottman's research is kindness. I love that because the gospel teaches us that. And so I would just emphasize this idea that kindness is part one. The second, I think, incredible anchor that we want to be teaching our children about is spirituality, right? And we know that from the scriptures, kindness is taught all over the place, right? I'm even thinking of 1 Corinthians 13 and Moroni chapter 7, that charity never faileth. So maybe taking kindness into a deeper level, where now it's actually charity, which is patience, kindness, long-suffering, Christ-like love. There's nothing better than being married to someone that's Christ-like. I can tell you that from personal experience. So as we close today, and we think of LDS, let's do something. We want to encourage our young single adults and college students to date someone that they can build a life with, not just someone they could have fun with. Ask the critical core questions. Would this person be a great parent? Would they stay in there when things get hard or difficult? And do they make me a better person, or just happier in the moment? So if you're a parent of a child who could be at risk, maybe invite them to listen to this podcast episode and take the assessment that I'm offering to you today. Once again, it's free. Just email me and I'll just send it to you. It's just a PDF. And that would be a good place for a great family discussion on, once again, some of the most important traits in a marriage partner. Everyone, thank you for being with me today. It's been wonderful. I love talking about these things. I hope they will be a blessing to you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to being with you again sometime soon.